This is a special interview. I've been looking forward to doing this. Every time I see Candy Carson, she is just it's like the firecracker behind the scenes and all the meetings I'm in. And most people don't know it because Dr. Carson is so cerebral and even-tempered. And then you get to meet her and you realize the whole package. The two of them are a dynamic couple. And I want to dive in on something I read in this book here on Gifted Hands. And that is how, even before you were married, God preserved the two of you from death in an automobile. Near automobile accident, which strange enough, you slept through it, but it was kind of traumatic. I mean, the hand of God is really on your relationship.
Yeah, that was quite a memorable moment.
90 miles an hour?
We had gone to, there are those of us who went to Yale who couldn't afford to go home over Thanksgiving. And the school offered to pay our way home if we would recruit. So we were both from Detroit, so we ended up recruiting for the week. And then, well, the night before, we decided we wanted to visit University of Michigan, which is an hour out of the way. Mm-hmm. But my sister was there, and he had a close friend. So when we were I was with my sister, and he was with his friend. Of course, we stayed up late talking, even though we had to drive back the next day. So that's why we were kind of sleepy on the way back, and had this extra hour. And it was on Route 8090 as we were headed back, and we were trying to get the car back because the school had allowed us to rent it. And we didn't want the school to have to pay an extra day. So here we are kind of zooming, and we both fell asleep.
Both fell asleep.
90 miles an hour.
90 miles an hour.
Yep. And as the car started to veer off onto the shoulder, there was gravel. So the vibration of the gravel woke us up, and he whipped the wheel, in the opposite direction, and by all laws of physics, it should have gone bouncing in over end. But it just went around in a circle a few times, like God had his finger on it, and then it stopped heading in the right direction.
Come on.
He said he didn't touch the brakes. He said he didn't. And it was just in time before an 18-wheeler was coming up, so we pulled over, because it was on the road, but it pulled over, and we prayed, thank you. Thank you, Lord, for saving us. We don't know what for, but thank you for saving us, because that was before we were even going together. Yeah.
So we talk a lot about couples. Well, we don't talk all the time about couples, but it's my highest rated program, so that's why I'm going to talk about that. Really? The relationship that you've got with your husband is one that I think it looks like God put this together. And now you, actually, I was going to be talking to him, and you're here filling in because he lost his voice. Yeah. But I think it's providential because you're going to give me some perspectives that I might not get from him because you have a different kind of way you see things. Yeah. You have been burdened about the trajectory of America in terms of like where it's going. Of course, Doctor is too. But you're coming at this from an interesting perspective in that you've been observing the way in which the story of America has even been tortured out of context. So we have a whole generation that doesn't know their history. They despise the history they hear about. And it kind of orients them to be almost hostile to their own culture. But what is it about America that makes it unique in your perspective? When you look at it in the world around us, what is it about America that makes it different?
Yeah, well, our country, we're one nation under God. You think about that. We say that in our pledge. One nation under God. Our founding fathers valued the fact that God is who he is, and he helped us to establish this country. Here's a country where everyone is created equal. And in the Bible, that's the way it is, and it's in our Declaration as well. So if we respect the individual, unlike some other countries where you have the different classes and only certain people are allowed to develop themselves, here we value each individual and respect each one, and we're willing to work together. Or at least originally we were. Right. Yeah. Not so sure that's happening these days as much as it used to be. But the fact of the matter is, each person has a different perspective, every single one. And we're coming from different educational backgrounds, ethnic backgrounds, and so on and so forth. And it's one of the reasons why a ragtag bunch of militiamen, as Ben likes to call the country as we were being developed, rose to the pinnacle, in almost no time, in 50 years or something, when these other countries have been around for centuries. Right. And here, we're competing with them on almost every level. only 50, 100 years. And that's
Right.
incredible, but it's because of our diversity and the fact that we're willing to work together and value each other's ideas, you know.
And this is such an important concept that is lost, that individuality under a canopy of faith, this idea that God is real, and God is far more important in the American journey, maybe more at the grassroots level. We see it institutionally. It's almost like they got a new secular religion going on. But when you travel around the country, don't you encounter more vibrant faith in the populace, you know, the flyover states, et cetera? I mean, it's not that faith isn't here. It's that it's not being discussed in the highest places.
Yeah, it's kind of sad that there are those who want to put a muzzle on people that don't agree with them, and if any, I mean, it's kind of sad, you know, it's about canceling people, you know, that not respecting the person for what their background is or with the way they see things, because there are different perspectives, and the more perspectives, you know, more light you can shine on something, you know, then the better understanding you have. So why not listen to others and get their take on things and see how we can better things, you know, for everyone. But that's not the case right now. So that, you know, the American Cornerstone Institute was started so that we could get our founding principles back, those of our founding fathers' principles, the one of faith, which is so important. You know, God is still sovereign, and you know, he's the one that made it so that we have the rights that we have, not the government.
Right.
So, okay, but faith, liberty, our freedoms. Right now, not everyone feels free to say what they believe. And some people are losing their jobs because of their freedoms. I mean, they should have the freedom to decide if they want a vaccine or not. Or if, for religious reasons or for health reasons, they don't want to take it, you shouldn't be forced to take it when the science says that it's not as effective as they used to think it was.
Right.
And then also we have herd immunity now. I mean, it's been going, you know, the way viruses work, and I've heard him say this too many times, they will mutate, and when you have a mutation each time, it becomes more, contagious, but less virulent. So we've had two, and now this last one, some people are asymptomatic, they don't even know they have it. I mean, my daughter-in-law, you know, had it, one of my daughter-in-laws had it, and she had to, she was supposed to sequester herself, but nobody else in the house caught it, you know, so it was good, you know, the Omicron one, but it's just, you know, as it mutates, everyone's going to have it, and we will all have antibodies, and so we don't need masks, we don't need vaccines, we don't need any of that stuff anymore, because it's not going to affect us in any bad way. So we need to look at the real science, and I shouldn't even have to say real science, should I?
Right.
But anyway, yes. So taking away liberties. Okay, so we said faith, liberty, community, and there is a sense of community in the beginning of our country where there were all these small communities. Sometimes only 50 families or 12 or, you know, maybe 100, but each one had certain things they could bring to the table, and they worked together. And if a farmer fell out of his tree during close to harvest time, others would come and help him.
Right.
You know, they would help him harvest, you know, because that's what communities do. They support each other and respect each other. And then the last one, life, because life is so important when you think about it. Can we really create life? Right. If you can create life, then maybe you have the right to take it away. But if you can't, should you be taking life away? And when you consider, you know, I remember he did a surgery on a child in the womb. There were twins. And one of them was developing hydrocephalus, which is excess fluid on the brain. Because this little girl's brain was increasing because of this excess fluid, then it was going to threaten the life of both babies because you know, she was going to deliver early and they wouldn't have been developed enough to exist outside. So he was asked if he would try, you know, they studied it and see if he could do something about that. And what they were going to do was insert a shunt. He'd been doing this for hydrocephalus babies, you know, outside of the womb, but it hadn't been done inside. So, you know, got together with people who had been experimenting on it, you know, in animals and so on and so forth, you know, got all the background information they needed for that, and were very careful with what they were doing. Hopkins wouldn't let them do it there because of the ethics committee that said, you know, this is too controversial, you can't do this. So he went to a hospital where they didn't have an ethics committee, and they were able to get it done. And they were mainly doing it to save the healthy child. But after a while, they could see that the one that had hydrocephalus was doing well too. So I was at a life, what is it, Children for Christ, or anyway, one of those events, you know.
Right.
And this young lady comes up to me, oh, very poised, statuesque, gorgeous blonde, comes up to me and says, "Are you Mrs. Carson?" And I'm wondering if I should say yes or no. No, but I said, yeah. And she says, "You know what, your husband operated on me while I was in my mother's womb." This was the twin that came up to me. Gorgeous, you know, very articulate, and so just poised. And you know, so when you say those two zygotes come together and become, you know, a fertilized egg, you know, and it's a totally different being. And it's different from the mom and the dad. It's not a part of them so much as it's its own being. Do you really have a right to stop that life?
And it's weird that the ethics committee would have blocked life, which tells you really can't give the arbitrary power to define these things to an institution, because they might not even have God in the equation. Yeah,
but their ethics was that their thought was that this type of surgery was very controversial, and there had been an article in the AMA maybe a week or two before this, when he was trying to get the permission, and it said that we weren't ready to do anything in utero yet, any surgery in utero, but it worked. So I mean, God is good. You know, He knows what's going on, and He knows who He can work through.
But there's a theme here underlying the conversation we're having, and it's about how the great breakthroughs and the great innovations come out of the willingness to experiment and to risk and to have actual diversity, where there's different ways of seeing things, different ways of approaching problems, and that out of that, the genius of the American experience produce, what is it? How many innovations did we have in the last 100 years? I think it's like, what percentage of that is like
90% came from America.
90% came from America. Why would 90%? You think about that, from the airplane to the light bulb to even technology with the digital world. It comes out of this kind of environment, and collectivism, or this kind of group, this communist idea, which is being romanticized now, actually kills that kind of community. Hey, I hope you've enjoyed what you've heard so far. This is just a segment out of our entire podcast, but I'd love to give you access to the entire broadcast, and it's going to be at lancewallnau.com/podcast. Go there and you can sign up and get the entire unedited, uncensored